Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 562 of the Juicebox Podcast. I'm certain that you've heard me say that I talk to people all the time outside of the podcast about type 1 diabetes. Well, I can't anymore. This podcast has become so popular, I just don't have the time. But I didn't want to stop having the conversations. So now if somebody asks me, I just say, okay, can we record it? And Katie is the first person to say yes. Katie was willing to have a vulnerable conversation where she did not know what she was talking about and was asking for help. And so we had this conversation together and I recorded it. And now it's a podcast episode. Definitely important to remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. That's very important because Katie and my conversation is pretty full of me, telling Katie what I think. So just remember, I'm not a doctor and this is not advice. It's just the Juicebox Podcast. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Omnipod, makers of the Omnipod Dash and the Omnipod Promise, which I'll tell you about later in the show. But for now, find out if you're eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash at omnipod.com/juicebox. Today's program is also sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. You'll learn more about that at dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today. I almost scared myself with my own deep voice just there. I was like, today's episode, I can't even do it again. It just happened by mistake. Hold on. I'll try one time for you. I'm ready. Here I come. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Whoa, you feel that? Vroom, rattled me right to my core. You are the inaugural one of these. In all of the years that I've been doing this, and one could argue that these phone calls led to the podcast in some way, I've never recorded one of these. So thank you. And hello.
Well, hello.
Yeah.
Well, I have like a really old, that came with my phone headset thing.
You sound great.
And so if you can't hear me well, it's probably that, because it's kind of old. But.
Wait, don't talk bad of it, because you sound terrific. And I was a little low on my end. I had to turn it up a little. So that's the only reason I couldn't hear you for a second. So
okay.
Do we want to keep your name out of this, or do you not mind using your first name, or what's up?
I don't care.
Look at you.
I don't think there's many people that will know me. So
are you afraid you're going to say something? I don't want you to feel impeded, because this is going to be like a real loose conversation about management where I ask a lot of questions, you answer, I talk for a while, I ask you if you have questions. Like, it's going to go back and forth like that. It might take like 45 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah,
no, I'm fine with it. I've been listening to your podcast for a little bit, and I've been struggling, and my husband's been struggling with Gage's care. Gage is my son. Mm-hmm. And, your podcast really honestly changed the game for us. And it's so sad to say kind of that, a podcast changed it for us more than our doctors did, so
I'm glad it helps.
I'm cool with all of it. I don't,
All right. Okay. So, just because we're recording it, just introduce yourself very quickly and tell me a little bit about your son.
So my name is Katie, and Gage is my 3-year-old autistic son that also was diagnosed with type 1. He was just diagnosed like 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of new to everything.
Okay. All right. So I have to stop myself because I get questions right away. Like, stuff starts popping into my head to ask you, and that's not what we're doing today. This is not a regular episode of the podcast. You started saying that. I was like, ooh, question here about this, and then this, and then, but no. So if this was a regular phone call, if you were so I guess first I should say this. There are 3 main types of people who reach out to me privately. I'm going to say they're the type A people who have figured it almost completely out, but still get like a weird rise somewhere and they want it to be perfect and they can't figure out how to make it perfect and they think I can help them. That one's always an interesting conversation because not that it's hard to take seriously, but when someone's like, hey, I have a 6.1 A1C, but I get a little bit of a rise at lunchtime, you know, you're like, oh, you're doing great. They're like, no, I'm not. I'm like, all right. So there's that person. Type A really wants things to be perfect. There is the person who is generally lost and just doesn't know what to do and has gotten so desperate that they're willing to reach out to a stranger on the phone. And then there's the third person who I think of as having common sense, seeing that what's going on doesn't make sense. They feel like they know what they want to do, but it so flies in the face of what their doctor told them that they're frozen and they can't act. Do you fall in any of those three categories?
I would say probably the last one.
Okay.
Definitely not the first, but more like the second and the last for sure.
Yeah, I have to tell you, no disrespect, but you wouldn't want to be in the first group. Those people seem tortured when I'm talking to them. They're just
that kind of makes me angry.
Yeah. It's funny, Katie.
Like shut up, you got it figured out. Like,
nah, but it's sort of like, once you furnished your house, but you still have one old table in the corner, you could live with it, but you're like, I do want to fix that up too. So
yeah, that's true.
Everyone's at a different spot. I would hope that you will be someday at a point where you actually have that thought, like, oh, his A1C's 5.9, but I wonder if I could make it 5.5 by that. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. Okay, so then the call would start. I feel like I'm narrating the call, which I'm going to have to stop doing and just talk with you. But you would jump on the phone. You'd be like, hey, I'm Katie. And I'd say, hey, Katie, how are you? I hope you don't mind if I clean a toilet or pick up leaves in my backyard while we do this. And you'd say no, because, I mean, what are you going to say? And, and then I go, listen, Katie, it's really important for you to know that I'm not a doctor, that nothing we're going to talk about on this call is advice. If I misspeak or you misunderstand me and that kid of yours ends up dead, it's not my fault. I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you to respond audibly that you understand. And
yes,
right.
I totally understand.
Right.
Yep.
And all I'm really going to talk about with you is what I do and how I see it being applicable to what's happening to you. That really is like all this is going to be. But I think it's going to be really helpful for you. So then I start asking questions and I say, how old, how long, what insulin, what tech? So he's 4. Is that right?
He's 3.
3, excuse me. And look at me already. I'm in podcast
it's okay. He's almost 4.
Really?
4 in July.
4 in July. How much does he weigh?
Ish. Oh, geez. I don't know. I would say probably like 40 pounds. He's pretty solid.
40 pounds, almost 4 years old. You said he has autism?
Yes.
I don't know why that's important to this, but I'm going to write it down just in case I forget. And he's had diabetes for about 6 months.
Yep.
Which insulin do you use?
So he does the shots, the pens. So he's on Humalog.
Okay.
During the day, like for his meals and stuff. And then he gets Basal at night. Mm-hmm. So, which is like Lantus.
Yep. And you have a CGM?
Yes, he has the Dexcom G6.
Okay. Can you take your phone for me, pull out his Dexcom, turn it landscape, go to 24 hours, take a screenshot of it, and text it to me?
Sure.
Cool.
You're not going to be very happy.
No. You misunderstand. Don't feel judged. I need to see it so I know how we can fix it. Don't worry about what it looks like now. Think about what it's going to look like tomorrow. My next question would be, is somebody home with him all the time, or is he in daycare or with another person?
So he was in school, a special education school, and he had to leave because they don't have a nurse or anyone that felt comfortable giving him insulin.
Yeah, that happens.
So, which is complete BS. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So he, no, he's no longer in school or daycare. My husband actually left his job to stay home with him.
Oh, tell him that worked out well for me. I don't know how old your
I
husband
know.
is.
I was like, I told him, I was like, you'd love this podcast because it's a stay-at-home dad.
Yes.
And
I don't have to shave every day.
He takes care of his kid.
Yeah. And really, that's, if you're looking for the biggest high side of being a stay-at-home dad, it's not having to shave every day. And I didn't, I'm sorry. Do you know how to text that to me? You maybe don't, right?
So is it like your, like a cell phone number?
Yeah,
or?
yeah, I'll give it to you. Just let me know when you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
690. And that's totally getting bleeped out. So
0.
Yes.
All right, let's see if that works.
It did. I have it. Okay. Except you didn't turn it landscape.
Oh, whoops. I'm not very good at it.
All right, Katie, that's it. This phone call's over. You break one rule and no. Could you do it again for me?
All right, let's try again.
You're in luck. This is going to be easy.
Oh, well, that makes me feel better. All right. I have to turn rotate back on my phone because I always turn it off. All right.
Right now, the people listening, which are people from the future, are like, come on, Katie.
Seriously. Like, how old are you?
Get to it. I got things to do. But they're getting this as a bonus episode. So you people stop complaining, okay?
Yeah.
To yourselves.
Come on, give me a break here.
Leave Katie alone. I don't know if you heard, she's got a 3-year-old with autism and type 1 diabetes. You're lucky she's still in the house. I mean, honestly,
so true.
You ever go to the grocery store and just think, maybe I'll just keep driving.
I'm just going to stay here for an extra hour.
And I talked to a woman yesterday who had 4 children. And while I was having the conversation you and I are about to have with her, and her kids were screaming nonstop in the background. And I said to her, do you ever think you just maybe are going to go? And she goes, it occurs to me sometimes. All right, here we are. I got it. Thank you. All right. Now I got the graph. And normally I don't have to explain the graph while I'm talking because you're looking at it too. But let me just say out loud for people who are listening. It looks like you have your high alarm set at 250, your low alarm set at 70. Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably.
Ish.
So it sounds bad, but he goes high so much that we're like, we might as well set it a little higher because
we're going to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, we get alarms all the time.
Yeah, Katie, we're going to fix that. We're going to make it so that doesn't happen. So I am looking at a graph that runs from about 10 a.m. to 10 a.m., right about there. Back at 10 a.m. the day before, I see blood sugars around 250 that came down to about 220, stayed stable for a couple of hours at 220. Then it looks like there's food that pops it back to 250. Is that right? That makes sense to you? That first spike up that happens on the left of that graph, does that look like a meal? Katie, are you still there? Katie, what the happened? Hello? Oh, wait, she's muted. That's hilarious.
Oh.
What in the happened, Katie? Did your phone
Can you
die?
hear me?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, my phone, I don't know what happened. My phone just shut off and now it's like turning on and off and on and off. But you can hear me okay?
Yeah, what are you
my
calling?
headphones aren't working. I had to use my husband's phone.
Oh, okay.
And the headphones aren't working on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Just kind of try to keep it still. Or you just have it up to your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep it from rubbing your face or your hair brushing by the microphone. We'll be okay. Okay. So I went through a ton of ideas. What may have happened to you? Struck by lightning in your home. I thought possibly you left your family. And I mused that perhaps, sometimes frozen urine gets dropped from airplanes and goes through people's homes. Wouldn't that have been crazy? I thought maybe a car crashed through your front window.
We can go with all of that.
And then when I texted you, you didn't answer. I was like, this is curious. I think her phone just died.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still turning on and off, so I don't know what's going on with it.
Can you imagine if, like it worked yesterday, right? What'd you use it for yesterday? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it has done that before, but
well, let's let that go now, okay? So where we were was I was looking at the graph, which can you see? Or not anymore?
Hold on, let me see. Are you still there?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my God, I feel so old right now.
How old are you?
31. Okay, so yeah, I can still see his graph.
Good for you.
I'm on my husband's phone though, so if you need something else, it'll be from a different number.
Don't worry about it. I just want you to. I want to talk through the graph and you be able to see it. That's all.
Okay.
So I was starting to describe it when you disappeared. What I'm seeing is about 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. 24 hours. At the very beginning of the graph, I have about a 250 blood sugar coming down, and then it levels off around 220-ish, and it stays there for an hour or so, and then it pops back up again. Is that quick pop up some sort of food, I'm imagining?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, and then a bolus, which did drive the blood sugar down over the next hour or so, probably to like 130, but then it pops again once they go back up. Then it drops back down. Then it goes back up to 180. And now we're at 4 p.m. He's 180. It looks like somebody puts in insulin. He drops down, but then he spikes. Then he drops harshly to 65-ish. It looks like somebody intervenes with some fast-acting sugar, which drives, or food, and drives him super up almost to 300 over the next 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock time. It looks like it drops down again. It hits 200 around 10, 11 o'clock and stays reasonably stable between 180 and 220 from 10 p.m. until 7 or so, when I'm assuming he ate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then comes back up, and now most recently around 9:30 took a sharp upturn, which looks like food that wasn't covered well with insulin. So,
right.
Okay. So there's a lot of stability in your graph. And by that, I mean there are long stretches of time where the blood sugar is not vacillating up and down wildly. And I take that as good news.
Okay.
And you don't know how to bolus meals, and your basal's probably a little weak. And we're going to figure out how to tell you how to do that right now. So what is, how much basal is he using, that Basal, and when do you inject it?
So we don't give it to him till nighttime.
Okay.
So like right before bed, like 9, anywhere between 9 and 10.
9 and 10.
And he gets 6 units of that.
6 units. Basal around 9 or 10 p.m. What do you think his correction ratio is, and what's his meal ratio?
Correction is.
Katie, I lost you. Katie, I lost you.
Oh, can you not hear me?
I got you right now. Correction is what?
115.
115 for a unit. And meal ratio?
So breakfast is 18. Lunch and dinner are 14.
All right. This has mostly been set up by your doctor, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really deviate at all from what they say, which I know we could, but
well, it's okay.
We don't.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something you had done. Hold on a second. 7. You said 7 units. Excuse me. How many units of Basal at night?
6.
6. Okay. 6 divided by 24 is 0.25 an hour. I'm going to guess he could handle more than that. So 0.4 times 24 is 9.6. That would be 0.4. If we did 0.35 times 24, we get 8.48. Okay. All right. Now I have to ask you some questions. The lows that I see, or I know they're not actually low. Actually, let's go through that really quickly. What do you consider low? Hey, this is a good place to drop in the ads because we're going to really get rolling after this, and I don't want to break up the flow. Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. You have insulin? Are you using it for your diabetes? Yeah, probably want a Dexcom. Dexcom.com/juicebox. See your blood sugar in real time. Right there on your cell phone if you like, or on the Dexcom receiver. I'm picking my phone up right now. My daughter is at school. Her blood sugar is 115 and extremely stable. Although, if I'm being honest, it started to rise up about 35 minutes ago from where it was sitting at 85. Yes, it doesn't look like food though, although it could be, but Arden would have had to make a really rock solid bolus for this to be a food rise. You know what? Just for you guys, give me a second. I'm going to text her. I'll be right back. Through the magic of editing, I am right back. It turns out Arden did make a bolus for food. How crazy is this? I can see right on the CGM, I'm looking. She's got this nice stability, 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the mid 80s. Everything looks good. And then I see a bit of a rise, but it's not drastic, so it either looks to me like Arden's insulin needs changed all of a sudden, or she's impacted her blood sugar somehow with carbs. And I just texted her, and turns out she did. As a matter of fact, Arden bolused for 65 grams of carbs about 11 a.m. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cool? 10:55 a.m. Arden boluses, and I see the rise beginning in a few minutes after that. The rise is controlled over the next 20 minutes and is leveling off now in the 115 range. So I'm thinking Arden did a really good job bolusing for whatever she had. But I can see that on my phone. So imagine what else I could see. An unexpected drop, an unexpected rise. Dexcom doesn't just show you that Arden's blood sugar is 115, it shows me that she's stable. If she was rising or falling, it would show me that too, and tell me at what rate that was happening. She could also be sharing this information with up to 10 followers. Right now, it's just my wife and I looking at it, but could be her school nurse or a friend or a loved one of any kind. Dexcom.com/juicebox. See the speed and direction of your blood sugar in real time. Let's talk about Omnipod for a moment before we get back to Katie. You may be eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash. Go to omnipod.com/juicebox to find out. That's it. A free 30-day trial. Are you kidding me? I can't even believe you're still listening. You should be at omnipod.com/juicebox finding out if you're eligible right now. If you are, give it a shot. And if you're not, you could always get them to send you a free, no obligation demo pod just to try on and see what you think. That way you could at least get a feel for what it's like to wear the Omnipod. There are a lot of options. Head over to omnipod.com/juicebox to find out about them. Now, maybe you're thinking right now, yeah, Scott, I would, but I'm waiting for the next big thing from Omnipod. I'm hearing it's coming soon. I don't want to get this thing and get stuck with it. Well, you won't, because with the Omnipod Promise, you can upgrade to Omnipod's latest technologies for no additional cost as soon as they are available to you and covered by insurance. Terms and conditions apply, but you'll get those details at my link. You're not locked into anything. There's no reason to wait. Get started today. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com. When you use my links, you're supporting the show. All right, let's get back to Katie. Thanks for listening to this.
So I get worried when it's at like 65 and it's like an arrow down.
Cool. Katie, you're my kind of girl. All right, so low is 65 just for our conversation. What are you calling high in your head? 250? Because that's where you set the alarm?
No, I mean, I know that high to me is like 180
Good.
And above.
Excellent.
But
that's great. I just want to make sure we're using the same definitions of things while we're talking. So, you don't pre-bolus meals, right?
We just started pre-bolusing. But I don't think that we're timing it right.
Mm-hmm. How long out are you doing it? It looks like
I don't know, maybe
it looks like
maybe 10 minutes.
I was going to say it looks like 5. It looks like 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, that's not pre-bolusing enough. That would be like if you started with a condom and then took it off halfway through and said, I practice safe sex. You kind of don't. So look at me feeling pressure to be funny because I know it's being recorded. That's interesting. That's a look into my brain. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to get your basal right. We need to teach you how to pre-bolus better. And we have to talk about the glycemic load and glycemic index of the foods he's eating. So what kinds of food is he eating?
So he's eating really horrible food.
That's a girl. Be honest. Let's go.
I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to beat around the bush. He has the typical autistic diet where he pretty much eats the same exact things every day, which is kind of good in our case. But it's all high carb, like processed crap.
Give me some ideas of some selections.
So, like chicken nuggets. We try to get him, like we buy him the organic veggie breaded ones that Walmart sells. So we pretend that they're healthy. And he eats those pre-made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yeah. So I can't remember. They're called Uncrustables. So those are 2 huge things for him. So that's either lunch or dinner every day for him with like snacks. So like a fruit strip. He eats those go-go squeezes. Trying to think like, like Cheez-Its, anything chippy like he likes. So basically carbs.
I have to tell you, after hearing that list of foods, you're doing really well.
Oh, good.
don't. I mean, you did not list one thing that is easy to bolus for.
No, and that's the thing is he really likes oatmeal, but we kind of had to
pretend oatmeal doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, because we give him oatmeal and he would be like 300 all day.
If Brandy is listening, the person I spoke to yesterday, she told her child that because of COVID that you can't get Fruity Pebbles right now. I thought that was brilliant.
Well, that's a good idea.
Anyway, okay. I don't normally have to ask this question, but how well does he understand you? How well are you comfortable that he's going to eat when you give him food, stuff like that?
So he's pretty much completely nonverbal, like communication wise, but he pretty much eats everything that we give him.
Okay.
And that's why, like in the beginning of this whole thing, they were like, do not pre-bolus, because he's so young, you don't know if he's going to eat, but we pretty much know he's going to eat everything. So there's been a couple times where he didn't and he plummeted and we had to give him juice. But other than that, I mean, he doesn't know that he has to eat everything or he's, his sugar is going to plummet.
Right. But you can get him to drink something if there's an emergency or something like that.
Right. Okay. So if we did pre-bolus for something and he's not eating it, I would just give him something I know he's going to eat, like a fruit strip or something else.
Right. Well, so there's a couple of different things here, and I just want to walk you through some ideas before I tell you what I'm thinking. So, to start over again, if the basal's not right, even a well-timed bolus isn't going to work, even if it's right. So say somehow, Jesus comes to you and says, hey, this 1 unit per 18 carbs is the exact right meal bolus for Gage. Even if that's true, like just undeniably true, if your basal's wrong, it won't matter. So imagine that, you're having a meal here and it's 40 carbs and Gage is probably getting about 2.5 units of insulin for that, right? And his basal is 6 units a day, but maybe it should really be 8 units a day. And if that's the case, some of the bolus that you're putting in when you're injecting for meals is really just making up for the job of the basal insulin. There's not enough there. So, if you needed 10 guys to, I don't know, cut your lawn and only 5 of them showed up, when 2 more show up, you're still not going to get the job done the way you're supposed to. That'd be a hell of a lawn, wouldn't it? But the point is that if you don't have enough basal, then your boluses are going towards basal's job, and then they're not able to go towards their job of handling the meals. Additionally, by not pre-bolusing, you're letting the food get way out ahead of the insulin. So there's just no way for the insulin to catch up. So again, if you don't have enough basal and you're putting in your insulin in a way where it doesn't have a chance, even if you use the right amount of insulin, you're bolusing for the food, not the... Are you correcting when you're bolusing for meals? So if he's 220 before a meal, are you correcting the 220 and bolusing the food?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's still not working. All right, good. And I say good because then it makes me more comfortable talking about the basal insulin.
So the basal insulin that we give him at night, the Lantus or the Basalgar, that is supposed to be holding him over for 24 hours, not just at night.
Yes. So, okay. Your basal insulin has one job. When you're on MDI, you shoot it in. It goes in, it kind of crystallizes under the skin and slowly melts away. And its entire job is to, over 24 hours until you put it in again, to hold your blood sugar stable at a number. So, meaning away from food and away from bolus insulin, meal insulin, your blood sugar should be super stable at a number. And if you're using enough insulin, that number can be as low as you want it to be. So see how super stable he is overnight? You know what I mean? If he had more basal insulin, he'd be super stable lower. That's it. And
so if he gets on, because we're trying to get him on the Omnipod, if he gets on that, I think I've heard you say before that it does it all day, not just at once.
Right. What'll happen? Right? Let's say can you shoot half units of Basalgar or just full units?
It's a half. You can do a half unit.
Okay, good. So let's say.
No. The Basalgar is 1 unit at a time. 1
unit at a time. So let's say we figure out that his Basalgar is 8 units a day instead of 6. And when we're done here, I'm going to tell you to try 7. How long? I'm going to tell you to try 7 tonight, and then look at your graph again and decide if it could be more, right? And I don't know if it's going to be or not, but with such a carb-heavy diet that's so consistent, and I'm imagining, am I right? Is he active or not particularly active during the day?
He's pretty active. I mean, it's kind of hard right now with it being cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's always moving around. He doesn't sit down for much.
So we'll just make up that we come up with 7 being the right amount, okay? And then you get an Omnipod. So what we'll do is we'll take the 7, we'll divide it by 24, the hours in the day, and you'll start your Omnipod at 0.3 units an hour of basal. So every hour, the pod will give you 0.3 units of basal, and it will spread it out over the hour. So it just kind of spurts little bits throughout the hour, just constantly putting it in until you get 0.3 every hour, and it just keeps going 24 hours a day. And the great part about that is that you can increase it if you're having a particularly stuck day, or you can decrease it if you're having a lower day, or you're going to say he's more active. Say you're going to a trampoline park or something like that. You might then say, well, I really don't, he's not going to need 0.3 today. Today's going to need 0.1. Imagine you could reach inside of his body right now and turn up the Basalgar or turn it down. You're actually going to be able to do that with a pump. But for now, what I'm guessing is at 40 pounds, he could probably handle more like 0.3. And he's not getting that. He's getting 6 divided by 24. He's getting 0.25. And that could be a big difference for him. So another 0.05 times 24 is, 1.2 more units of basal a day. And it might be 4. It might be 0.4. It might end up being 8 units. I have no idea. But if I was you, the first thing I would do is tonight, I'd give him 7 units of Basalgar instead of 6. Because even when he's down near 100, it's only because you're driving him down with a lot of injections, it looks like. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we still think that like there's a couple days during the week that we're convinced that he's still honeymooning because we like have to give him juice all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some days that it does seem like that is what is going on.
Okay. So on those days where it seems like he's honeymooning, instead of just giving him juice, because you get caught in the loop, you're like, oh, hello, here's some juice. And then he goes back up and then he comes back and you're like, oh, here's more juice. Just give him something more substantial. Give him a half of one of those peanut butter things or a bite of one of those peanut butter things. Put something in his stomach that's going to stay in his stomach for a while on days like that. Because on days like that, when his body's doing the work or some of the work, the basal insulin you gave him is still doing what it's doing. So since you can't shut it off when you're injecting it, you need to then think of the basal insulin like a bolus. I know that's like a weird leap to make, but you can give him uncovered carbs. And if you give him enough of them, that'll sit in his stomach and digest more slowly, then that will hold his blood sugar up longer than juice, which will go in and try to fight with that extra basal that he doesn't need because his pancreas is making some insulin today. And that it's just the juice gets overwhelmed and basically burned off too quickly to help you. So you have to put something more substantial in those situations. Okay. So the graph I'm looking at here, is this a pretty common graph for most days?
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at it like a few days ago, you'd be like, what the heck? Because that was when we think he was still honeymooning and he was like dropping down quick every hour. But I would say probably we've been trying to do it. Like there's some days that I'll look at it while I'm at work and I'm like, wow, he's doing really good today. And, you know, he's in like the 119 area for most of the day, but he does jump up pretty high. So I'd say, yeah, probably, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So the next thing here is the meal insulin. So I want you to try to imagine a tug of war. So we got a rope, and on one side there's one team, on the other side there's another team. Let's call one team insulin and call the other team carbs. All right. And in a normal tug of war, the goal is for one team to win, right? There's a flag hanging in the middle of the rope, and you're trying to pull the flag to your side. Mostly what's happening is your carbs are winning that tug of war. But you're playing a slightly different game. You don't want anyone to win the tug of war. You want the flag to stay in the middle. You want the carbs to pull as hard as they can while the insulin is pulling as hard as it can, and neither side, be able to overwhelm the other. So when you see a really flat line, that's what's happening. What's happening is, you know, when you see somebody online, they're like, look at me, I bolused for Chinese food and I'm 80 and stable, and you're over there cursing at them. And the point is that they've balanced the impact of the carbs against the action of the insulin perfectly. You're not doing that. So what you're doing is you're setting up the rope, giving everybody the rope, and you're telling the carbs, hey, you go ahead and pull now, but insulin, you're not going to get to pull for 10 minutes. Right? So even if you were to start at a great blood sugar, say he was 85 and he's super stable. Say we figure out his basal, he's 85, he's super stable when he's away from food, and you're just like, we're so good at this. And then you go to feed him food and he eats his Crustable, but you put in the insulin 5 minutes before. So the insulin goes in 5 minutes, it's doing nothing. He starts eating that Crustable, it starts hitting him almost immediately, and now the rope starts getting pulled towards the carbs. He goes 85, he goes 90, he goes 95, he's 110, he's 125. Now you're diagonal up, 131, arrow goes straight up. Does this sound familiar? Yep. Okay. And now he's flying up, 150, 180, boom. And then all of a sudden it starts to dip a little bit, 180, 200, it's catching. Oh, I think it's going to work. It's going to work. No, it's not. 220, 250. Right. That right there is when the insulin started working. Because without the insulin at all, his blood sugar would have went forever up because he has diabetes. So right when you start seeing it to slow down and then it starts to level off, that time, that's how long it took for the insulin to have him like sway over the food. Right? So now imagine if you put the insulin in 15 minutes before he ate. Then you'd be telling the insulin, go ahead and pull sooner. And you'll keep messing with that a little sooner, right? A little later. Sometimes it's a little more, it's a little less. And you figure out timing and amount. You got to use the right amount of insulin at the right time. If you do that, you can eat anything, and your blood sugar won't go up. It has to be the right amount at the right time. Now, some foods are going to take an insane amount of insulin over other foods. You know, bolusing well for broccoli is not as hard as bolusing well for Chex Mix or oatmeal or something like that. But it can be done if you can figure it out. So the first thing you have to do is pre-bolus longer. So, and you actually have to do it. What happens? You guys put it in and then you lose your nerve and give them the food?
No, so like in the morning, it's hard because he wakes up and he's like ready to eat. Like, give me all the food. And, you know, with his autism, he gets really aggressive and upset, and it's almost like, okay, what are we gonna deal with? Are we gonna deal with him beating us up until the insulin kicks in? Or
do you have to wake him up in the morning, or does he wake himself up?
He pretty much wakes himself up. There's some mornings where my husband has to, because he has like therapies and stuff. But he pretty much is
about it.
Yeah.
Similar time.
Yeah.
Okay. Does his blood sugar start going up before he eats ever?
When he wakes up, it starts to go up. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say good, because that means he wakes up, I'd give him insulin. Like right away. And how is he with the shots? Does he mind them?
He doesn't like them.
He doesn't like them.
That's why we want to get him on the pump, because we literally have to like hold him. Like, it's pretty aggressive, you know. Like my husband has to hold him down pretty hard for certain places, you know. I used to have to run after Arden as she giggled and ran away from me. So and then I'd have to grab her and hold her, and I'd be like, come on. I had the needle in my teeth, and it was, you know, I'm sure it was very hygienic. But the reason I asked the question was because I was wondering if he just didn't mind the insulin injections, could we do 2 in the morning? Like wake him up, pop in a unit just to get it going, and then bolus for the food. You know, I'm trying to think of ways for you to do that. But you're right. If you get to a pump, then either, you know, what I would do is I would say to myself, how much insulin does breakfast usually take? Can you tell me about how much? Yeah, I've actually got his chart right in front of me. So he averages usually like 3, like anywhere between 2 and 3 in the morning for breakfast.
Okay. And you think that when he wakes up, how soon is it before he eats? Pretty quick.
Like after he wakes up?
Yeah, after he wakes up, when's he eating, time-wise?
So my husband says like within 20 minutes to a half hour.
20 minutes to a half hour. But it would be sooner if it could be. Like if you gave him if you like whipped the peanut butter and jelly at him in the bed, he'd start eating it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you have, I just wanted to make sure. So you have control of when he can start eating. So I have to say, if that's the exact scenario you're describing, he wakes up, I inject the insulin as soon as he wakes up.
Would you, at the end, you would do for the blood sugar that it is when he wakes up and what you're going to feed him?
100%.
You do both?
Yeah. But we're also going to try to get him to wake up at a better blood sugar. But yes, I would. I mean, to be perfectly honest, at any point overnight last night, I would have tried to move his blood sugar with an injection while he was sleeping.
Okay. Yeah, we have done that once. He was pretty high one night, and we just went in and gave him some. But I don't even think that it did a ton.
Well, it's probably because he doesn't have enough basal too. But so understand, if the basal's only in there enough to hold him at 200 overnight, and you put in a little bit of insulin, he'll dip down, but then his body function will push him back up again. So even though he doesn't have food, his body's still making glucose in different ways. And trust me, in a couple more years when he starts growing, it's going to get worse. So it's good you're figuring it out now. So yeah, I mean, how much insulin would have moved him from 200 to 100 last night, do you think? Like, forget the chart for a minute. What do you think it would have taken?
Well, we did last night before he went to bed. We had to give him a unit. Then
that's when he was like 300, like around 9:30 or so.
He was That's probably what, yeah. So we wrote it down at 910, he was 242 and we gave him a unit.
And then he popped to 300 and then came back down. Can I ask you, did he jump up from the anxiety of the injection, do you think? Do you know? Because if he doesn't like the shots, anxiety and adrenaline can push your blood sugar up.
So he actually was asleep when we gave him
okay. So he was headed up anyway.
Last night. Yeah. So he doesn't mind them when he's sleeping.
I see. Okay. I see what you did here. He's low around 6, 7-ish. He does this fire up, and around 250, you're like, oh, hell. And you gave him insulin, and it still powered through that insulin up to almost 300 before it started to come back down. So I know you don't see that, but if you're looking at the graph, that's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you that, see the 2 dots that are the harsh up, and then there's 2 dots that are closer, one that's farther away, and then they get tight again around like maybe 8 or 9 right in there.
Yeah.
He's sharply going up there. That's when I would have given him the insulin for that. Like you waited, like you really let the momentum get on the side of the blood sugar. So even though you put a unit in, he went 250 to 300, then back down to 180, and then see how he starts rising again once the unit's out of him? That's because he doesn't have enough basal. That's exactly what that is. And even though the basal was in him all night and it did try to get him down, it only ever got him as low as like 170, maybe 175. So yeah, I think another unit of basal is a great start. I honestly think if you do another unit of basal and try to do a longer pre-bolus, let's just call it 15 minutes for now, okay? I think tomorrow's graph looks substantially better. I wouldn't even want to mess with your ratios until we could get the basal right, and then get your pre-boluses right. Because I can't tell if your ratios they might be way too heavy and you don't realize it, and you're just making up for the basal all the time. Has anything that I've said so far not made sense or been confusing?
No, I mean it's all
making sense.
It all makes sense. Good. When you kind of explain it a little bit better than the doctor said. I mean, I didn't even know that the basal guard stays in his system that long. I thought it was just to keep him steady at night. No,
it's all day. It's supposed to be doing that same thing all day. You know, in a perfect world, I know you can't imagine this, but if he didn't eat, in a perfect world, that basal guard should hold him at like 85 for 24 hours. It's hard to get right. Don't get me wrong, but that is the overarching goal of that medication. That's what it's for.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to listen to the Defining Diabetes episodes. Okay. They're short, and so you'll get through them quickly. They're in your podcast app, but you can find them at diabetesprotip.com too if you need them in a list. Because there are some pretty basic terms that you don't know yet. And so these shorter episodes, like you'll scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a list of them. There's, I think it starts around 236, number 236. It's bolus, basal, honeymoon, A1C. Some of these are, just a few minutes long to 20 minutes long. They're me and my friend Jenny. She's a CDE and she's had diabetes for almost 33 years now. As a matter of fact, for everybody listening, we're going to do like a big online card for Jenny for her 33rd anniversary. But we'll talk about that later. Standard deviation, extended bolus, algorithms, non-compliant. Like there's a ton of just terms that if you understand not just what they mean, but how they work, they become tools in a toolbox. So do that, get through those. And then once you get through those, or at the same time, I mean, you should start the Diabetes Pro Tip episodes. So it's going to be like this phone call, except much more focused topic to topic. And they started episode 210, and you'll find them on that page as well. Okay. I think this is usually something I end up saying to a lot of people. You are seeing it, right? Like you're seeing the problems and you just don't have enough tools to do something about it. And it doesn't sound like your doctor is doing much more than saying things like, let's change his carb ratio to 1 to 18 at breakfast and see what that does. Is that about it?
That's exactly what it is.
That ain't going to work. Because 1 to 18 might be too much. Like if we get his basal right, you might find his breakfast is 1 to 14. You might find his lunch is 1 to 10. Maybe not. I don't know. But we're never going to know for sure while his basal's this far off. So, and you need to understand what the basal insulin does. You need to understand what all this stuff does, or you can't, like imagine you're going 1,000 miles an hour in a car and you're in control of it and you don't know which one's the brake. Like that's where you're at right now. So let's teach you what the brake is, and then you'll do a better job when you need it. But I'm saying, just based on this graph and what we've talked about so far, we're going to try another unit of basal at night tonight. And starting at his very next meal, you're going to bolus him sooner. Can I ask what's the last time he's eaten today? It's 10:47 right now. Is it 10:47 where you are?
Yeah.
Okay. What time has he eaten last today?
He had breakfast around 8, but we gave him eggs first and then gave him regular food, carb food.
Okay.
So, probably like 8:30 he was done, maybe 8:30 o'clock.
9:30, 10:30, 2 hours, 15 minutes ago. What's his blood sugar right now?
Might be too far away from him. It says 242.
Okay. All right. I don't like this any more than you do, but go tackle him and give him a unit of insulin. All right. Because I want you to make a bolus here with an intention of getting his blood sugar to 120. If that's a unit, if he really is 1 for 115, then that's perfect. Give him a unit and let's see what happens. Because you either didn't pre-bolus his meal, which I don't think you did, or you didn't use enough insulin for his meal, or a combination of those two things. And so he's now 240. He does not have enough basal, so he's gonna drift up till the food's out of him, till it's been digested, and then his basal's just gonna hold him steady wherever he's at. And he's just gonna sit there. So drive him down and see if it'll sit there. Now, if you drive him down to 110, like say you give him this unit, and 90 minutes from now he's 110. And 2 hours from now, he's still right in that area and he's sitting stable. Well, then, hey, guess what? Your 6 units of basal's good. We don't have to give him 7 tonight, but you need to do a better job at meals. And that might mean that these ratios are off and you're not pre-bolusing. So let's take a shot at it today. And I'm going to keep in touch with you. Okay. So take a shot at it. Take a shot at it right now. Try to drive him down to 110. And then I want to see what happens. Does he go down at all? Does he go down and stay stable? Does he go down and bounce back up? And now if he goes down and it looks like it's going to be too far, like say he gets to like, he's 80 and he's 1 hour down, like an hour from now. Well, then that was too much. But don't give him an entire juice box. Like give him a couple of sips. Try to stop the arrow. Because if you just throw in 15 carbs, then it's very likely that his blood sugar is going to stop going down like it did yesterday at 6 o'clock and then shoot back up again because you've got all these carbs in him that are uncovered because you didn't bolus for them and your basals might be wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Is it reasonable to ask you to jump back on and do this again for like a postmortem for like 15 minutes tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine.
Even though it's Easter?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Like I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. I guess it depends on what time.
All right. Well, whatever time is good for you. I don't want to just leave you in the lurch. I want to figure out what happens.
Right.
I'll tell you.
So what can I ask a question
you
though?
can ask a lot of questions. Go ahead.
So if we do the unit now, so we've pretty much stuck to, and I know it's not right, but we're kind of like, we have no idea how to do like a unit without giving him food and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be eating lunch probably in the next hour and a half.
No, I would definitely give him a unit now.
If we gave him a unit now, I guess our thing is that we've never really done that. We've never like corrected for his blood sugar alone.
Yeah. So here's how I would think of it for you. If you think he's going to eat in the next hour and a half, then most assuredly give him the unit now. And maybe give him a unit and a half, and then consider this a correction and a pre-bolus. You could do that, or you could just give him a unit now and let's see how far we get down. Like, say you give him a unit now and an hour from now, he's acting a little hungry, but his blood sugar is 150. Then in that case, what I would do is then bolus his meal, right? And then wait for a little bit of a downturn. Like, say they put the insulin in, and when you start seeing that insulin working and his 150 turns into like 130 of a diagonal down arrow, that kind of thing, because this is your first time, then go ahead and feed him. And now you've got insulin on your side. Now you're holding that rope, and you told the insulin, hey, go ahead and pull. So now the interesting thing about when the insulin pulls is that it doesn't pull at full speed immediately. So it's not like a light switch. It's a slow burn. It's like getting a tractor trailer up to speed. You know how you have to you got to shift through like 20 gears just to get it to like 40 miles an hour, right? So that's how insulin works. It's like it starts to pull, but the rope doesn't move. And then 5 minutes later, you're standing back going, I think the rope is moving. I'm not sure. And then 10 minutes later, maybe it did just move a half an inch. 15 minutes later, oh, it is moving. 20, now it's moving a little more. Now you've got this starting blood sugar. Let's say you start at 100. Now you're 20, 25 minutes later in whatever that space is, you're 80 diagonal down. Now you put that food in, right? He starts eating at 85 diagonal down. And as the food starts to hit him, boom, the insulin kicks in. So now the insulin's pulling as hard as it can at 85. Now the food's pulling as hard as it can at 85. Neither of them can win, and your blood sugar stays at 85. That's how people make a straight line on a graph. It's that easy. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly difficult, but it's that easy. It's that simple, but it's difficult. But you have to have your settings right before any of that can work. Because if you're running in with that plan, with a deficit of basal and a carb ratio that you don't know is working, while you're trying to fight with frozen chicken nuggets, a fruit strip, go-go, whatever the hell that is, and a Crustable, you're in trouble. Like that's not, those foods are of the most difficult ones. Like the only way you can make that worse is if you gave him oatmeal and put Fruity Pebbles on top of it. Then I think maybe you could make it worse.
And he would definitely eat that.
And are you kidding me? As I'm saying it, I'm like, oh my God, why has no one ever put Fruity Pebbles on?
It kind of sounds good.
It seems right.
Okay. Yeah. Cause when we're in the hospital, they kind of scared us into our train of thought being, okay, this kid's only going to eat 3 meals a day.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like
the snacks are going to be pork rinds and eggs. Like, that's it. What
part of the country-ish do you live in?
Upstate New York.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, this ain't working, so you should try something different. And his blood sugar is higher, so I think the thing you need to try is more insulin in targeted areas. And I think you need to kind of, like I said, like do a little studying, get some of those other episodes in, kind of fill your toolbox up. Tell your husband, I said, shut up and listen. Like, who cares what he thinks? Just do it. By the way, when you're listening, and this is a personal favor to me, please don't listen on the same phone so that I get credit for 2 downloads. I'd like you to listen on one phone, him to listen on another one. Thank you very much.
I listen at work when I'm at work all day.
Yeah. So I don't know if he would hate me or like me, but the information's good. And, neither here nor there what he thinks of me. So, I do think that you guys, ironically, are only a couple of days away from a graph that you're like, holy crap, look at this. But you just don't know it. Aside from having to tackle him and not knowing anything about autism, if you sent your son here, I could get his blood sugar down and stable in the next 4 hours. Like I could do that, but I know how to do it. And it'll take a little longer because he's MDI and we have to wait till tonight to get in some basal. And it sucks because he doesn't want a bunch of injections. But I would use Humalog to get his blood sugar down today. And then I would get the basal right and have it held there. Does that make sense? I also definitely would try to get a pump. I just think
we're trying. I don't know if you obviously know, but they're coming out with a new Omnipod or an updated version. And we're trying to figure out if we get it now if we'll qualify for an updated version when that comes out.
To the algorithm. You want to get to the Omnipod 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
I really would like that.
I bet you would. Do you have other kids?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. How many? Tell me.
Well, we have one that is 11 and we have one on the way. So
you're preggers?
Yep.
Brave and or stupid people. Good for you. Congratulations. Which are you, brave or stupid? Tell me.
Well, we found out we were pregnant before Gage. We found out about his diabetes. So
no. Oh, I see. Gotcha. I also found out you were pregnant. Did you have any inkling you might be?
Yes.
Found out. Acting like you're 10 and you don't know how it happens.
I know.
You found out you were pregnant when you got the invitation to the wedding. That's all.
Yep.
All right. So any other questions?
I don't think so. I think we'll try that. And, I really don't I mean, even in the hospital, I was so surprised that they let us leave the hospital and his sugar was 300.
Yeah.
And so when we left the hospital, okay, they let us leave and it was 300. So we could probably get away with him being 300. We had that mindset.
Sure.
And so when I'm listening to your podcast and people are talking about, a high for you is over 120. And it's holy crap. Well, our kid is high all the time.
I have a question. Prior to the diabetes, I mean, he's always been autistic, right? I mean, you've known about his autism forever-ish, I would imagine. 6 months?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. Okay.
But you have a feeling for who he was before the diabetes. Is he different now? More aggravated? Easier to set off? Moodier?
I mean, his lifestyle changed a little. So I think that he's home all the time now, which he wasn't before. Mm-hmm. So that is different for him, but no,
you're not sure about the rest.
I don't really think so.
Because a lot of people don't recognize when their blood sugars are high constantly that it's impactful on your brain, and it makes people short-tempered and cloudy and confused sometimes. And so you may see a change in him after a couple of weeks of his blood sugar being lower and more stable. Does he know when he's dizzy?
No, I mean, when he's been low before, very low, and he just, acting totally fine.
Okay. I just didn't want to bring him down too quickly and have him, because people can get dizzy at higher numbers than dizziness really exists, but it's still real. So, right. When your body becomes accustomed to higher blood sugars, and then even I helped a girl one time and she was falling over dizzy at 150, but her blood sugars were constantly 250. Mm. So it took her a number of days to get accustomed to it, and then she was fine eventually. Yeah. So that I just wasn't sure about that. So your overall goals are, if we're just talking about blood sugars, are stability, spikes that don't go over 160. I want you to get into a world where 160 is like a miss and 180 is a complete fuck up. Okay. And when you're away from food or bolus insulin, stability that exists more between 85 and 110. Okay. So that stability that we saw last night that was basically between 180 and 220. We want that stability to exist more 85 to 110 overnight. And you do that and you start pre-bolus the meals and you dial in these settings a little bit, and his next A1C will be 6.5 probably. And I'm guessing now it's more hold on one second. For some reason, a guess did not pop right into my head. So let me do a little checking. Is his A1C in the 9s right now?
So the last time we had it done was actually when he was diagnosed, and it was 9.6, I think.
Average blood sugar of 230 is 9.6. So it would be interesting for you to know that I just pulled up a little glucose calculator that, by the way, is available at juiceboxpodcast.com. And I typed in 230 because I think that's about your average blood sugar, and it popped up A1C 9.6. So, when's he going to get it done next? I guess he hasn't had it done in a while because of COVID.
Yeah. And he's like the most difficult person to get blood drawn.
Gotcha. So you're going to,
it takes like 4 people to hold him down.
Well, here's the good news, right? If you, Arden, by the way, for years, no trouble ever, never any trouble. And one year, I forget how old she was, she just decided she didn't like needles anymore. And in the endo's office, like she was backpedaling into a corner up the table into like, if she was Spider-Man, she'd have been on the ceiling. And, the nurse looked at me like, what is happening? I was like, oh no. And it lasted for a couple of years. Like she was able to do it finally, but in a panic the whole time. And then one day it just went away. Now she gets blood draws. She's like, here you go. She just throws her arms out. She watches while the needle goes in. I don't know what happened, but she freaked out for a little while. Not to say that it's going to get any better for Gage. I'm not sure. But what I am going to say is that if you have a CGM, you can be reasonably assured of his A1Cs using like their Clarity app.
Right.
And so maybe that's a thing you can save him from, is having to get those blood draws that are just for A1Cs.
Yeah, I think they want to test him for other stuff like celiac and I can't remember what else.
Yeah, they're going to want to test him for celiac. It's very common with type 1s. They'll probably want to test his thyroid function as well.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Right.
Thyroid.
And the thyroid thing's a pill. If he has that shouldn't be difficult for him. But my God, if that poor kid has celiac,
I know.
How the hell's he going to eat?
I have no clue what the kid would eat.
Yeah.
No clue. I don't think he does. I mean,
he doesn't have a lot of stomach pain.
All he eats is carbs. I think we would know.
You think he would just be walking around holding his stomach constantly going, I think there's something wrong with my stomach. Yeah. So, all right. So let's do this. Is he still 240-ish?
Yeah.
All right. If you want, you can send me his Dexcom and I'll watch it overnight for you so we can talk about it. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, the Dexcom share thing?
Yeah. I'll follow him for like the next day or so. And we'll get back together tomorrow and talk for maybe 20 minutes.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to push stop on the recording and I'm going to give you an email address to send me his Dexcom at. Most podcasts would split this into 2 episodes to try to double their downloads, but I'm not a scumbag like that. So just listen to one more ad and then we'll get back to it. It's not really an ad, actually. It's, I don't know if I ever explained that before. T1D Exchange is not an advertiser. I get compensated when you complete the survey. So it's not technically an advertiser. It's me using up my space on my podcast to let you know about it. It's splitting hairs, but neither here nor there. That's how it works, and I think it's important that you know. Now that we're past that, the T1D Exchange is looking for type 1 adults and type 1 caregivers who are U.S. residents to participate in a quick survey that can be completed in just a few minutes from your phone or your computer. After you finish the questions, and they are simple, I actually did it in about 7 or 8 minutes, you will be contacted annually to update your information and to be asked further questions. This is not an intrusive process. It's just an email. This is 100% anonymous, completely HIPAA compliant, and does not require you to ever see a doctor or go to a remote site. So this is your opportunity to impact type 1 diabetes research right from your home. Now, every time someone completes the process using my link, t1dexchange.org/juicebox, the podcast benefits. So if you've been looking for a way to help people with type 1, research, or the podcast, nothing could be easier or more beneficial. So one more time, go to T1D Exchange by using my link. It's right there in the show notes of your podcast player, or you can type it into a browser, t1dexchange.org/juicebox. When you get there, click on Join Our Registry Now, and after that, just simply complete the survey. It's super easy to do, and it'll help a lot. Past participants like you have helped to bring increased coverage for test strips, Medicare coverage for CGMs, and have made changes to the ADA guideline for pediatric A1C goals, which is a really big deal. People filled out that survey, and they took that data and impacted how the ADA talks about A1C guidelines. That's important because that's how endocrinologists hear about goals. So the reason that your endo right now isn't trying to keep you at an 8 A1C is in part due to the T1D Exchange and the data that they collect from people who take the surveys. It's a big, big deal. It seems like it might not be, but it's huge. I'm excited to imagine what your participation might lead to. And I'm personally trying to add 2,000 people to the registry by the end of Diabetes Awareness Month. I hope you can help me. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Thanks for listening to that. Now let me catch up here. Katie and I spoke. I started following her child on Dexcom. We texted back and forth over a number of days. Then we got back together and recorded this follow-up. You ready? Here we go. Okay, you are being recorded. So I appreciate you coming back and spending a couple more minutes with me. I expect you're going to talk a lot more this time and ask a lot more this time. So I'm just going to ask you, it's been 5 days since we spoke. How are things going?
So they're kind of went the opposite direction.
Okay.
So instead of being, he still has highs, but instead of being really high all the time, he's kind of now we're dealing with a lot of lows, and we're thinking that maybe that has to do with maybe the Humalog, the insulin that he gets when he eats, maybe that needs to be cut back.
Okay. All right. Let's figure it out for you, because your graph over the last number of days is exponentially better overall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
Yeah. Everything that's happening is happening lower now, not higher, which is amazing. When you do find, well, this last 24 hours, if I'm looking at it, and I am, then I go back to last night and I'm looking overnight. So you're correcting high blood sugars. Luckily, the high blood sugars you're correcting are now under 200, which is really exciting. And even when you're high and stable all the way overnight, you were higher and stable between like 140 and 160-ish. Then there's this big bolus at 9 a.m. Drops really fast. And then, okay, so all we did so far was move the basal up 1 unit, right? From 6 to 7.
Yep.
Okay. And I actually thought for the first couple of days that looked incredibly stable to me. Like I didn't see a lot of lows that were I didn't see any lows that were from basal. As a matter of fact, now, even looking at the last 24 hours, I don't see any lows that are from basal. I see them from corrected high blood sugars. And you're getting like today, as an example, around 130, there's a little bit of like a 60, 65 blood sugar. And then it pops over the next 20 minutes up to like 75 or 80 levels. And then 2 hours later, he's 250. So do you know what happened there? So we can talk it through.
So Zach was actually home with him today, and he went low, and I believe he corrected for it. So the low that you're seeing was like, okay, we need to do something because it's going to go lower, you know?
Yeah.
He gave him like a 15-gram carb gram, whatever, fruit strip. And then it seemed like he was going to be all right. And then it gradually just started going up.
Yeah. 15 carbs of something that sugary without insulin is never going to be okay, I would imagine. I mean, unless his blood sugar was 65 and 2 hours down, which the graph doesn't make it feel like that was the case to me. But see, so are you looking at it? Do you see it?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. So just in general, we're still looking at like timing issues. Like you're either bolusing the meal and it's getting away from you, and then you're correcting the meal and it's either dropping super fast straight down or not fast at all, but still falling over hours and hours and hours and ending up lower. So when that happens, to me, that's a good indication that your meals are mistimed, or you're not using enough insulin, like you're saying, or too much insulin, one or the other at your meal time. So what do you think is happening at the meals?
I really think that it's the, excuse me, that it's the actual amount of insulin we're giving him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe now it's too much.
Because you're also pre-bolusing now.
Yeah, because he's definitely pre-bolusing, and I know that he's pretty much talking to me all day. Like, okay, I waited 10, 15 minutes, and then he eats, and then it's like, holy crap, he's like dropping super fast. And then, we just give him something else. But it seems like since we changed the basal, that he's been having a lot more of these lows after he eats. And the only thing that I can think of is that his Humalog is just, there's too much being given for that now.
Yeah, because we really did two things on day one. On day one, we gave him another unit of basal, and you started to pre-bolus the meals. So I think of that as two distinctly different steps. And like I said, the basal, I think is, I know you had to correct a 65 today, but the truth is that he was on the lower side from 9:30 till 1, but he was still between like 65 and 75 in that time. So there's still stability there, but what you really need to look at from that is that it came out of this 9 a.m. 177 blood sugar that somebody hit very hard because it dropped like a stone in like 35 minutes down to 60. Mm-hmm. So everything that's happening after that big drop is, I think, precipitated by the big bolus that brought you from the 170-ish down to the 60. So that bolus was, see how fast it worked? Like, to me, that means you put in a lot of insulin that didn't have a lot of resistance. And then it gets down, and I'm assuming he ate in there as well. Yeah, I think a lot of that, I would be hard-pressed to say that the basal is the issue, is what I'm saying. I think you're definitely right. And let's talk about why for a second. Because before, when you weren't using enough basal and you weren't pre-bolusing, you needed more insulin to stop the spike. Because the blood sugar just didn't have any resistance coming from anywhere. It didn't have any resistance coming from a timing aspect because you were pre-bolusing, and it didn't have enough resistance from a basal aspect. So you fix the basal or make the basal a little more aggressive, and then you start putting the insulin in sooner that gets it working sooner. So that just makes sense to me that then you're right. You were probably using too much meal insulin back then, and you need to probably take some of it out now. I think that's probably your next step. So what's his insulin to carb ratio?
Trying to remember. I had it in front of me. So he gets I'm trying to think, because they're all different. 16, I think, for breakfast. Mm-hmm. Although we noticed with it going down, Zach had changed everything back to an older number that we had before.
Yeah.
So he changed it to like 20.
Good.
But then he still dropped pretty low.
Yeah.
So I think we're just going to like tweak it a little bit.
That's what I would say.
If that helps.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would say that you're going to have to like play experiment in here a little bit and keep changing the ratio for the food until you're getting a pre-bolus that doesn't result in a spike, or if it is a spike, it comes back down, it gets level, it doesn't come back down and fall, or you don't have to put in insulin to make it come back down. You just want it to sort of happen. We don't care if he goes up a little bit as long as it's gentle and not spiky.
Right.
Yeah. And does the reasoning why make sense to you after I said what I said?
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I was already kind of thinking that.
Good. Yeah, no, I felt like you got a lot out of our other conversation. Because you guys really, like, the 2 days afterwards were just exceptionally good. And you were just still figuring stuff out. And listen, to say that you're not going to figure out pre-bolusing in 4 days is an understatement. Like, you're going to have to, you're going to need some more time to figure it out. But you're not creating you're not creating scary, panicky lows. And so, and his blood sugar right now is 109, which is just amazing,
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, the only thing is that we just got approved, like fully approved for the Omnipod Dash.
Oh, cool.
And so we're setting up going to the hospital and having them train us on it, and having him, put it on him for us and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And at that time we'll be able to control his basal like hourly, right? So we can, if we notice a low at a certain time of day, we can just change it.
Yep. You should,
it'll be easier.
Oh my God. It's so much easier.
Once we have that.
The first time somebody explained to me what an insulin pump was, it felt like they gave me like an on-off switch for basal, which was always my biggest concern, was once you injected it, it was in there and you couldn't do anything about it,
Right.
Your basal rate per hour should start, in my estimation, around 0.3 an hour. Watch that the hospital doesn't try to make it 0.1 or something like that, and then tell you we just want to make sure it's not too much, because if they make it 0.1, his blood sugar is going to be 250 constantly. And so, 0.3, it might end up being 0.25, you know what I mean? At some point, maybe overnight, it'll be 0.2. I don't know, but it isn't going to be 0.1 or 0.15 in my estimation. So just kind of pay attention to that when you make the switch. When are you doing it? Do you know?
So we asked to do it in person, because they asked if we wanted to do it virtually or in person, but we're not comfortable doing it on our own. So the first time, at least. And so we just have to wait for them to tell us when we can come in person. So hopefully, because we should be getting all the materials tomorrow and in the mail.
That's excellent.
So we should probably next week or the week after, at least.
Excellent. Very cool. That's amazing. I think, and he's going to be okay with it, right? Because he leaves the Dexcom alone, so he should be fine with the pump, right?
Every once in a while he touches it, but
he's not ripping it off and throwing it across the room or something like that. So,
no.
Yeah.
But actually, the day that I was talking to you, we got so I went on to Touch by Type 1, and he got the box that they give to people who are newly diagnosed. And it came with the demo.
Oh, the pod demo was in there. Cool.
Yeah, so it was cool. So I just stuck it on him and to see, how he does with it on his back area, because we're trying to figure out where to stick all the stuff.
Yeah.
And he was fine with it. So we're thinking, he's going to do okay.
I'm excited because you two, you and your husband, I thought made a quick adjustment. It all seemed to make sense, and you're doing a great job. I know that his graph's not super smooth and straight and everything, and you're probably thinking but it's so much better. It really is. It's just, do you feel better about it in general?
Yeah, I mean, I feel way better about it because I was just so glad that Zach actually was on board with it, and he felt comfortable with it because he's the one that's with him, all day long. So I was really happy that you kind of convinced him about all this stuff.
I ended up texting with him by mistake, I think, because your phone died the day or something after we talked. And so I ended up texting with him, and he asked me a couple questions and I just answered them. And, it's funny because guys text so much differently than women do. It's yes, no, thank you. Good. But no, I felt like he understood everything I'm seeing, as I look at this CGM, tells me that you're doing a good job, and it's making sense to you, and you're going to figure it out. It's coming around. I have to tell you right now, of the 4 people I'm following right now, your son has absolutely the best blood sugar of the 4 of them, including my kids. So, so he's doing really good. I got a 109, a 134, a 146, and a 67 on here. So,
wow,
you're winning, in my opinion. The 67 is pretty stable, though. All right. Well, listen.
That's true.
we'll have to have a little race at the end. I'm going to unfollow him if that's okay with you, unless you want me to follow him a little longer. And if you do, tell me. If you're going to try something and you want me to look back at it, that's fine. I don't have a problem one way or the other. Just tell me if you need me again or if you want me to be gone.
Okay. I mean, at this point, I think it's fine if you unfollow him. If I feel like I need your opinion on something, I can just, we can just resend it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think I know what our next steps are, but I mean, we're going to be getting on the pump anyway. So not like we're going to be able to do too much in that time frame.
Yeah. I think just keep working on your pre-boluses. Keep adjusting the amount of insulin you're using at meals, and just try to react. I mean, you're doing a really great job. Like, listen, when you and I got on the other day and we started talking, I had no idea your son had autism, and that must add like a level to this that I just can't possibly fathom. You guys are doing a really, really good job, and you're so new at it. Like, this is April. You've only been at this like 5 months or so, right? So you guys are killing it. Like, you really are. Yeah, definitely don't feel bad about anything if you even had the inclination to feel badly. Work on the pre-bolusing. Keep in mind, and then, tell your husband to keep paying attention. Like, I put a strip of this stuff in to correct and it was too much. Next time, let me try giving him a quarter of a strip of it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be the whole thing just because he opened it. And he'll learn how to kind of bump those blood sugars around a little bit, and you'll be on your way. Is Zach listening to the pro tip episodes?
I think that he maybe has started listening to some, because he, was using all these new terms that I didn't think he knew. But awesome. I don't know for sure. I really don't know.
Well,
I did though. I listened to podcasts all day at work. So I listened to pretty much all of them.
Right.
And they were great. Well, they were really informative.
I'm glad. Just, hey, look, let him know that I think it would be a great idea if he listened, because he's super close. He's just got to think about it a certain way and it'll start working out.
Right.
That's it. I appreciate you jumping back on. Anything else? Any questions? Anything?
I don't think so. All
right. I'm calling you.
All your help.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm calling you a win, and I am unfollowing your son. Done. I am no longer seeing your private life. You absolutely send me a note if you need anything, okay?
Okay.
All right. Katie, hold on 1 second. Go on. Because I'm sorry, I'm turning the recording back on because I should have said this to you. There's two possibilities in here. We fixed his basal, and now you have to fix the meal ratios. Or, now that you're pre-bolusing, maybe the basal could go back to 6. I don't know which is which. That's the thing you're going to pay attention to over the next couple of days. So if you start getting better and better at the pre-bolusing, and you start finding stability at like 90, then you say to yourself, okay, great, we're looking good. But if you start getting better at the pre-bolusing, but the stability you have is still too low in the 60s or the 70s, then maybe you have to take the basal back to where it was. Does that make sense? That maybe because you weren't pre-bolusing before, the basal wasn't the problem, and we kind of fixed the problem a little bit. Like, so do you know what I'm saying? Like, as crazy, I was almost cursed, but as crazy as that sounds, it could end up being one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. My only thought is that, so like at some point today, I'm not looking at his graph right now, but he was steady for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right before, I believe it was right before lunch. And so I said to Zach, I was like, you're going to pre-bolus and then watch him. Because if he goes low, then you know that it's the Humalog and it's not the basal.
Right. I don't think, I want it for clarity, I don't think the basal's a problem. I just want you to remember that it's an option, that there are two different insulins working here. And then by the way, you're going to get on a pump, and then it's, and then you're going to have more control over the basal. Then you could start doing like 0.25 an hour, and see how that goes. And you could get kind of granular with it, because either 6 or 7 might not be the right thing. Maybe it's 6.5 a day he really needs. You know what I mean? So you'll have that kind of fine tuning when you get the pump too.
Right.
Plus, if like I said, maybe he needs 0.3 during the day and he'll need 0.25 or 0.2 overnight. Like I'm making up numbers, but if that happens, you can make that change. And now you're not just counting on this insulin to go in one time a day and magically take care of 24 hours, basically. Anyway, I just wanted to say that to you so that people could hear it too. I don't want to keep you. I know it's late in the evening. Probably have to go feed your family and avoid things and hide, watch TV and stuff. Is it about what you're going to do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to push the button and shut this off again. Huge thanks to Dexcom for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Find out more about the Dexcom G6 at dexcom.com/juicebox. There's links in your show notes and links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Also, don't forget about that Omnipod promise. And don't forget that it's possible you're eligible for a free 30-day trial of the Omnipod Dash. Omnipod.com/juicebox. And lastly, but not leastly, that's not a word, Katie, for coming on the show and having this rather private conversation in front of everybody. Thanks so much, Katie. I hope you and your family are doing well. I'll be back soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.